Some moments in life hit you like a freight train, unseen, unstoppable, and merciless. You don't hear the rumble until it's too late, and by then, the wreckage is all that's left. I'm Sophia, 37 years old, and this is where my story begins, or rather, where it explodes. Picture this: a family dinner in Portland, my childhood home, a place I'd stitched together with every dollar, every sacrifice, every shred of hope I had left. I walked in expecting warmth, maybe even a flicker of gratitude. Instead, I got a guillotine. At that table, surrounded by the people I'd carried for 15 years, I learned the truth. My parents had written me out of their will, handing everything: the house, the Cannon Beach cabin, their entire legacy, to my siblings, Ethan and Lila. Me? The one who'd poured over $600,000 into their lives? I was nothing to them but a ghost they'd already buried. This isn't just a betrayal. It's the spark that lit a fire I didn't know I had. Welcome to Destiny Rewritten. Buckle up, because this is only the beginning. The invitation, a siren's call. It started 2 weeks earlier, on a rainy Tuesday in Seattle. I was hunched over my laptop in my cramped apartment, the glow of spreadsheets reflecting off my glasses, when my phone buzzed. The screen flashed Mom, a name that hadn't appeared there unprompted in years. I hesitated, my finger hovering over the decline button. For over a decade, I'd grown accustomed to their rhythm. Calls came when the mortgage was overdue, when Ethan needed another loan for his latest pipe dream, or when Lila begged for cash to fund her next Instagram-worthy escape. But this time, her voice was different, sweeter, softer, almost tender. "Sophia, honey," she cooed, "you should come home for dinner. It's been too long since we've all been together, just the family, like old times." I froze. Old times? The phrase conjured memories of a Portland I'd romanticized. Thanksgiving dinners with Dad carving turkey, Ethan and Lila bickering over the last roll, Mom's laughter filling the room. But those days were long gone, replaced by a reality of one-sided phone calls and bank transfers. I'd built my life in Seattle, a tech startup founder clawing her way through a male-dominated industry, working 80-hour weeks to keep my company and their lives afloat. Yet a stubborn ember of hope flickered in my chest. Maybe this time they missed me. Maybe this was the reunion I'd dreamed of, a chance to feel like I belonged again. Against my better judgment, I said yes. The drive from Seattle to Portland was 3 hours of winding highways and gray skies, the wipers slashing through sheets of rain. I gripped the steering wheel, my knuckles white, a bottle of Pinot Noir rolling gently in the passenger seat, a peace offering, a symbol of the optimism I couldn't shake. My mind churned with questions. Why now? What had changed? I replayed Mom's words, searching for cracks in her tone, but that honeyed warmth kept me tethered to possibility. By the time I pulled into the driveway of the old Victorian house on Northeast 32nd Avenue, the rain had stopped, leaving the air heavy and still. The house loomed before me, its sage-green paint peeling at the edges, the wraparound porch sagging slightly, a monument to the years I'd spent keeping it standing. The stage, a perfectly set trap. I stepped inside, the familiar creak of the hardwood floor greeting me like an old friend. The dining room was a tableau of nostalgia and deceit. The long mahogany table gleamed under a vintage chandelier, its crystals catching the light and scattering it across the walls in jagged, deceptive patterns. Tall candles burned in silver holders, their flames wavering as if nervous, casting shadows that danced like specters across the room. A pot of beef stew sat at the center, steam curling upward, its rich scent of rosemary and thyme clashing with the sour taste already forming in my mouth. Mom bustled in from the kitchen, her silver hair pinned in an elegant bun, a smile plastered on her face that didn't reach her eyes. "Sophia, you made it," she chirped, pulling me into a hug that felt rehearsed, her perfume sharp and floral. Dad sat at the head of the table, his broad shoulders slumped, his graying beard framing a face etched with lines I'd once thought were from hard work, not avoidance. He nodded at me, a grunt his only welcome, his eyes fixed on the wine glass he cradled like a lifeline. Ethan lounged to his left, 32 years old but still carrying the slouch of a teenager, his dark hair mussed, a smirk tugging at his lips as he scrolled through his phone. Lila perched beside him, 29 and radiant, her auburn curls cascading over her shoulders, twirling a strand around her finger as she shot me a glance, half amusement, half triumph. The air buzzed with something unspoken, a tension I couldn't name but felt in my bones. I set the Pinot Noir on the table, forcing a smile. Smells amazing, Mom. Been a while since we've done this. She waved a hand, dismissive. Oh, you know how busy life gets. Sit, let's eat. I took my place across from Ethan, the chair creaking under me, and for a fleeting moment, I let myself believe this could be normal. We passed the stew, the bread, the wine, small talk fluttering like moths around a flame, weather, traffic, the Seahawks' latest loss. But beneath it, a current ran, dark and electric, pulling me toward a cliff I couldn't see. The revelation, a blade in the dark. It happened 10 minutes in, as I spooned stew into my mouth, the warmth turning to ash on my tongue. Mom cleared her throat, a sound too deliberate, and set her napkin down with a precision that made my stomach lurch. Sophia, she began, her voice dropping an octave, there's something we need to tell you. Your father and I have finalized our will. I froze, the spoon halfway to my lips, my pulse quickening. Dad shifted in his seat, still avoiding my gaze. Ethan leaned back, arms crossed, his smirk widening. Lila's eyes glinted, a predator sizing up prey. I set the spoon down, my hands trembling slightly. Okay, I said, forcing calm. What's in it? Mom sighed, a practice sound, as if this were a chore she'd rehearsed. The house here in Portland, the cabin in Cannon Beach, our savings, everything we own, it's going to Ethan and Lila. The words landed like a sledgehammer, splintering the air, the table, the fragile thread of trust I'd clung to. My breath caught, a sharp pain blooming in my chest. I turned to Dad, desperate for a denial, a flicker of dissent. He stared at his wine, his silence a louder betrayal than her words. What? I croaked, my voice dry, cracking like old wood. Everything? To them? Ethan shrugged, casual as if discussing the weather. Yeah, Soph. You've got your startup, your fancy life in Seattle. You don't need it. We do. Lila giggled, twirling her hair faster. Exactly, you're like, set for life. We're still figuring things out. My laughter erupted, sharp and hollow, echoing off the walls. Figuring things out? Ethan, you've burned through 6 careers, art school, photography, that vegan food truck that lasted 3 months. All on my money. I paid $80,000 for your dreams. Lila, you've never held a job longer than a summer. Jetting off to Bali, Paris, Santorini, racking up $120,000 in travel expenses I covered. And you're telling me you need it? Mom's gaze hardened, her lips thinning into a line. Sophia, there's no need to overreact. We've thought this through. You're stable, successful. Ethan and Lila need a foundation to build their lives on. A foundation? The word seared through me, igniting a fury I hadn't known I could feel. I'd paid $2,000 a month for their mortgage since I was 29, 8 years, $192,000 total. I'd sunk $50,000 into the Cannon Beach cabin, turning a crumbling shack into a seaside gem, all because Mom said it was our family legacy. I'd wired $200,000 over the years for utilities, car repairs, Ethan's tuition, Lila's designer bags, over $600,000 in 15 years, a fortune I'd clawed from late nights, missed vacations, a life I'd put on hold. And now, they dared call me stable, like I hadn't built their stability with my own hands. The unraveling, a mirror of truth. I pushed my plate away, the stew suddenly rancid. What about the $600,000 I've given you? I demanded, my voice rising, trembling with a rage I couldn't contain. The mortgage I paid when you were drowning in debt? The cabin I renovated? The endless checks I wrote because you said family helps family? Mom crossed her arms, her face a mask of ice. Sophia, don't make this about money. You always do. We made this choice because we love all our children. Love? The word twisted in my gut, a knife coated in poison. Love doesn't exploit, Mom. This isn't love, it's theft. Ethan smirked, leaning forward now, his eyes glinting with mockery. You're acting like a kid who lost her favorite toy. Chill out, Soph. You're rich. Why do you care? Lila chuckled, her voice dripping with condescension. Yeah, seriously. You're keeping tabs on every penny? That's so disappointing. You don't need to be this stingy. Stingy? The accusation hit like a slap, my vision blurring with red. Stingy? I repeated, each syllable a shard of glass. I've spent over $500,000 keeping this family alive. I skipped promotions, trips, a bigger home, my dreams, so you wouldn't have to struggle. And you call me stingy? Dad finally spoke, his voice low, gravelly. Sophia, enough. We've decided. It's done. His words were a gavel, final and cold, sealing my fate. I stared at them, Mom's steely resolve, Dad's cowardice, Ethan's arrogance, Lila's glee, and saw the truth I'd buried for years. I wasn't their daughter, their sister. I was their bank, their safety net, a tool they'd used until it dulled. And now, with no more use for me, they'd discarded me like trash. The breaking point, a spark ignites. I stood, the chair screeching against the floor, a sound that cut through the suffocating silence like a scream. My hands gripped the table's edge, knuckles white, nails digging into the wood. "What about me?" I asked, my voice shaking but steadying, a storm gathering strength. "What about the $600,000 I gave you? The late nights I worked to pay your bills? The life I put on hold?" Mom slammed her hand down, the glasses rattling, wine sloshing over the rims. "Enough, Sophia. Stop acting like a victim. You always make it about money. We did this for love." Love? My chest burned, a cold rage spreading like wildfire through ice. "Love doesn't leach, Mom. This isn't love, it's fraud." Ethan laughed, a sound devoid of warmth. "You're such a drama queen. Accept it. Everyone here's an adult." Lila nodded, her smirk widening. "Yeah, grow up already." That was it, the moment the ember flared into a blaze. I saw them for what they were, parasites who'd fed on me for 15 years, who'd never seen me as family, only as a means to an end. I took a deep breath, letting the anger settle into something sharp, something lethal. "I'm done," I said, my voice low, cutting through the room like a blade. Mom blinked, startled. "What did you say?" I met her gaze, my eyes steel. "I'm done. I have no more obligations to any of you." Ethan's laugh faltered, unease creeping into his tone. "What, you're cutting us off just like that?" I didn't flinch. "Yes, and you'll feel it soon enough." I turned, my footsteps echoing as I walked toward the door. Mom's voice rang out, sharp and frantic. "Sophia, what the hell are you doing? Family sticks together." I paused, a smirk curling my lips, cold and unyielding. "Family? This isn't a family, it's a betrayal." Her final shout chased me into the night. "If you walk out, don't come back." I didn't stop. The door slammed behind me, a gunshot in the silence, and as I climbed into my car, the rain began again, washing away the last traces of the girl who'd believed in them. The aftermath, a road to reckoning. Driving back to Seattle, the highway stretched before me like a ribbon of black ink, the city lights blurring through a haze I refused to call tears. My chest tightened, a boulder pressing down, my mind spinning with their words, Ethan's smirk, Lila's giggle, Mom's ice, Dad's silence. I'd called that house home, but it was a lie, a black hole that had swallowed every ounce of my effort, my love, my trust. I'd given them $600,000 over 15 years, $192,000 for the mortgage, $50,000 for the cabin, $200,000 for their whims, $160,000 for their failures. I'd built their lives brick by brick only to be erased from the blueprint. But as the miles ticked by, something shifted. The pain didn't break me, it forged me. I wasn't the victim they'd painted me as. I was a force they'd underestimated, a fire they'd ignited. This dinner wasn't my end, it was my beginning. They thought they'd buried me, but they'd planted a seed. And I was about to grow into something they'd never see coming. Scene fades out. Sophia's car disappears into the rainy night, headlights cutting through the dark. The voiceover returns, fierce and resolute. That night, they didn't just cut me out of a will, they cut me out of their story, but I'm rewriting it. This is destiny rewritten, and what comes next is a reckoning they'll never forget. Stick around, you won't want to miss it. Expanded section. The betrayal. A family's mask slips away. They say betrayal cuts deepest when it comes from the ones you love. I didn't just feel the knife. I felt the twist, the slow grind of steel against bone. I'm Sophia, and this is Destiny Rewritten. That night, at a dinner table I'd fought to keep standing, my family didn't just rewrite their will, they rewrote me out of their lives. Their excuse? I didn't need their inheritance because I'd built something of my own in Seattle. My siblings, Ethan and Lila, they needed support. But as their words sank in, I saw the truth I'd been blind to for 15 years. I wasn't their daughter, their sister, I was their wallet. And when that wallet closed, they didn't mourn me, they despised me. This is the moment the mask fell, and I saw the monsters beneath. Stay with me. This betrayal was just the spark. The justification, a hollow defense. The air in the dining room thickened after Mom's announcement, the weight of her words pressing down like a storm cloud ready to burst. My parents had finalized their will, leaving everything, the Portland house on Northeast 32nd Avenue, the Cannon Beach cabin, their modest savings, to Ethan and Lila. I sat there, fork abandoned, stew congealing on my plate, my heart hammering as I tried to process the blow. Why? I'd asked, my voice a brittle thread, barely holding together. That's when the excuses came, each one a brick in the wall they were building to shut me out. Ethan spoke first, his tone casual, almost bored, as if this were a trivial footnote. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, his dark eyes glinting with a smugness I'd mistaken for confidence all these years. Look, Soph, he said, shrugging, you've got your tech startup in Seattle. You're what, pulling 6 figures? 7? You don't need this stuff, the house, the cabin, you're set. Lila and I, we're still figuring things out. We need the boost. His words slithered out, smooth and rehearsed, a script he'd clearly polished in his head. Lila nodded eagerly, her auburn curls bouncing as she twirled a strand around her finger, her lips curling into a half smile that didn't reach her eyes. Yeah, exactly, she chimed in, her voice lilting with a faux innocence that made my skin crawl. You've got your whole life together. We're not there yet. Mom and Dad just want to give us a chance, you know? I stared at them, my breath shallow, my mind reeling. A chance? A boost? The phrases echoed, hollow and absurd, against the reality I'd lived for 15 years. I turned to Mom, searching her face for some crack in this facade, some sign of remorse. Her silver hair gleamed under the chandelier, her posture rigid, her eyes cold and unyielding. Sophia, she said, her tone clipped, measured. We've thought this through. You're successful, stable. You've built something for yourself. Ethan and Lila need a foundation to start their lives. It's only fair. Dad, as always, said nothing, his broad hands wrapped around his wine glass, his silence a louder endorsement than any words he could have spoken. Fair? The word ignited something in me, a spark of disbelief that flared into a wildfire of rage. I laughed, a sharp, bitter sound that ricocheted off the walls, startling even myself. Fair? I repeated, my voice rising, trembling with the weight of a decade and a half of sacrifice. Ethan, you've had 6 starts. Art school, photography, that vegan food truck that went bust in 3 months, all funded by me. I wrote checks for $80,000 to chase your whims. Lila, you've never worked a real job, 29 years old, and your biggest achievement is a 50,000-follower Instagram account, built on trips to Bali and Paris I paid for. $120,000 in plane tickets and hotel bills. And you're telling me you need a foundation? The numbers, a ledger of loyalty. The room fell silent, their faces a gallery of masks. Ethan's smirk faltering, Lila's eyes narrowing, Mom's lips thinning into a razor line. I pressed on, the numbers spilling out like a flood I couldn't dam. Let's talk about fair, I said, my voice steadying, sharpening into a blade. For 8 years, since I was 29, I've paid $2,000 a month for this house's mortgage, $192,000 total. When you were drowning in debt, Mom, when the bank was about to foreclose, I stepped in. I took on that burden so you wouldn't lose this place. The Cannon Beach cabin? I sank $50,000 into it. New roof, new floors, new plumbing, because you said it was our family legacy. I believed you. I turned to Ethan, my gaze piercing. Your tuition, your gear, your failed ventures, $80,000, Ethan. I didn't blink when you dropped out of art school after 2 semesters, when you sold your camera 6 months later, when that food truck sat abandoned in a lot. I kept paying. Then to Lila. Your influencer life, $120,000, Lila. Flights, resorts, designer clothes so you could pose on beaches and call it a career. I funded every post, every like, every shallow dream you chased. I faced Mom and Dad again, my chest heaving. Utilities, car repairs, holiday gifts you demanded, another $200,000 over the years. That's $600,000, give or take, from my pocket to yours. 15 years of my life, my work, my dreams deferred. And you say I don't need it because I'm stable? I'm stable because I had to be, because I carried you all. The silence was deafening, a void swallowing the room. The candles flickered, their light dimming as if ashamed to witness this reckoning. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his smirk gone, replaced by a flicker of unease. Lila stopped twirling her hair, her fingers frozen mid-motion, her smile replaced by a scowl. Mom crossed her arms, her face a fortress of denial. Sophia, she snapped, there's no need to exaggerate. You've always been good with money. We're proud of you for that. But Ethan and Lila, they're not where you are. They need this more. JCU? Aside the realization, a mirror of truth. Proud of me? The words twisted in my gut, a cruel mockery of the truth. I leaned forward, hands braced on the table, the wood cool against my palms. Proud of me? I said, my voice low, dangerous. You're not proud of me. You're proud of my bank account. 15 years, $600,000, and what do I get? A pat on the back and a thanks but no thanks? You didn't write me out of the will because I'm stable. You wrote me out because I'm no longer useful. I've been your crutch, your ATM, your safety net. And now that I've built something for myself, you think you can toss me aside and hand it all to them? Ethan scoffed, rolling his eyes. Oh, come on, Soph. You're making this some big conspiracy. It's not like that. You're just mad you didn't get a cut. Lila nodded, her voice dripping with condescension. Yeah, seriously, you're rich. Why are you so obsessed with this? It's not a big deal. Not a big deal? The dismissal lit a fuse I didn't know I had. Not a big deal, I shot back, my voice rising, cracking with fury. I've spent over $500,000 keeping this family alive. I skipped promotions so I could work overtime to pay your bills. I didn't buy a bigger apartment, didn't travel, didn't invest in my own future, all so you wouldn't have to struggle. And you call it not a big deal? Dad finally spoke, his voice gruff, weary. Sophia, that's enough. We've made our decision. It's done. His words were a gavel, heavy and final, slamming shut any hope of reason. I looked at him, at the man who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd once carried me on his shoulders, and saw a stranger, a coward who'd let this happen. Mom's eyes were steel, unyielding. Ethan's smirk returned, faint but there, a taunt. Lila's scowl softened into a smug grin, as if she'd won some unspoken bet, and in that moment, the veil lifted. The epiphany, not family, just a resource. I straightened, my hands falling to my sides, the rage simmering into something colder, clearer. I'd spent 15 years believing in them, believing that family meant mutual support, that my sacrifices would earn me a place at their table, not just a seat but a stake. But as I stood there, surrounded by their justifications, their indifference, I saw it. I wasn't a daughter to Mom and Dad, not a sister to Ethan and Lila. I was a resource, a well they'd tapped until it ran dry. My $600,000 wasn't a gift, it was their entitlement, a debt they'd never repay, not even with gratitude. Memories flooded back, unbidden and brutal. The late nights at my startup, coding until dawn to meet payroll, then wiring $2,000 to Portland because Mom said the mortgage was late again. The Christmas I skipped a trip to Iceland, my one chance to see the northern lights. To buy Ethan a $3,000 camera he sold 6 months later. The summers I worked through, ignoring friends' invites to the coast so Lila could post selfies from Santorini, her captions thanking the universe, but never me. The $50,000 I'd poured into the Cannon Beach cabin, hammering nails alongside contractors, believing Mom's promise. This is for all of us. All of us. Except me. I'd built their lives brick by brick, dollar by dollar, while they built nothing but excuses. Ethan's figuring things out was a cycle of failure I'd funded. Art school dropout at 22, photography flop at 25, food truck disaster at 28, each collapse cushioned by my checks. Lila's not there yet was a lie. She'd never tried, content to live off my labor, her Instagram a shrine to a life I'd paid for. Mom and Dad's foundation was a myth. They'd had one, me, and now they were handing the rewards to the freeloaders who'd never lifted a finger. The confrontation, a line in the sand. I took a step back, the chair behind me a silent witness to my breaking point. So that's it? I said, my voice steady now, a calm born of clarity. I give you $600,000, 15 years of my life, and you hand it all to them because I made something of myself? Because I didn't need your help, but they do? Mom's jaw tightened. Sophia, stop this. You're twisting it. We love you. We just want what's best for everyone. Love? The word was a lie, a hollow shell. Love doesn't work like this, I said, my tone cutting through her defense. Love doesn't exploit. Love doesn't discard. You don't love me, you love what I've given you, and now that I'm not giving anymore, I'm nothing to you. Ethan laughed, a short, harsh sound. You're such a drama queen, Soph. It's not that deep. You're just pissed you didn't get a handout. Lila smirked, leaning forward. Yeah, honestly, it's kind of pathetic. You're rich, why do you even care? Pathetic? The word was a match to gasoline. Pathetic? I snapped, my voice rising, a storm breaking free. I've carried this family for 15 years. I've paid for every dream you've chased, every bill you've ignored, every luxury you've flaunted. I've given up my own life so you could have yours, and you call me pathetic for wanting a shred of fairness? Mom slammed her hand on the table, the glasses rattling, wine spilling like blood. Enough, Sophia! You always make it about money. We did this because we love all our children, not because we don't care about you. Her words were a shield, but I saw through it. No, I said, my voice low, lethal. You did this because I'm the one you don't need anymore. I've been your bank, your backup plan, your fool. But I'm not your daughter, not in any way that matters. The verdict, a truth laid bare. The room stilled, the air thick with the weight of my words. Ethan's smirk faded, his eyes flickering with something, guilt maybe, or fear. Lila's grin vanished, her hands dropping to her lap, her bravado crumbling. Dad stared at his wine, his silence a confession. Mom's face was a mask of fury, but behind it, I saw the truth. They knew I was right. They'd always known. For 15 years, they'd taken $192,000 for the house, $50,000 for the cabin, $80,000 for Ethan, $120,000 for Lila, $200,000 for the rest, because I'd let them. I'd believed in family, in loyalty, in a bond that transcended money, but they didn't. To them, I was a means to an end, a resource to exploit until it was spent. I straightened, my hands clenching into fists at my sides. I see it now, I said, my voice calm, cold, a blade honed by betrayal. I'm not part of this family, not really. I'm the one who paid for it, but I don't belong in it. You don't need me, you need my money. And when I stopped giving, you stopped pretending. Mom opened her mouth, but I cut her off. Don't. I'm done listening to your lies. You've made your choice, now I'm making mine. I turned, the hardwood creaking under my feet, each step a declaration. Their voices rose behind me. Mom's shrill protests, Ethan's scoff, Lila's whine, but I didn't hear them. I'd heard enough. The door loomed ahead, a threshold between the past I'd clung to and the future I'd forge. As I gripped the knob, Mom's final shout pierced the air. If you walk out, don't come back! I didn't pause. The door slammed shut, a gunshot in the night, and as I stepped into the rain, I felt it. Not defeat, but liberation. They'd betrayed me, but they'd also freed me. Scene fades. Sophia's silhouette vanishes into the storm, rain streaking the lens. Her voiceover returns, fierce and unyielding. That night, they didn't just cut me from their will. They cut me from their lie. I wasn't their family, I was their fool. But fools can learn, and I did. This is destiny rewritten, and what comes next is a fire they can't extinguish. Keep watching, you haven't seen anything yet. Expanded section, The Fight. A war of retribution unleashed. Betrayal doesn't end with words. It festers, it fights, it claws back. I'm Sophia, and this is Destiny Rewritten. When I walked away from that dinner table in Portland, I didn't just close a door, I lit a fuse. I cut off every penny I'd poured into my family, $2,000 a month, gone in a single tap. I thought that was the end, that I'd won my freedom. I was wrong. They didn't let go, they struck back, vicious and desperate. Ethan defaced my home with paint and spite. My family smeared my name to anyone who'd listen, and Lila tried to torch my company with a digital dagger. But I didn't break. I fought. This isn't just a fallout, it's a war. And I was ready to burn it all down to rise again. Stick with me. This battle's about to ignite. The first strike, cutting the cord. The decision came the moment I got back to Seattle, the rain-soaked drive from Portland still echoing in my bones. I tossed my bag onto the couch, poured a glass of Pinot Noir, the same bottle I'd brought to that cursed dinner, and sank into the silence of my apartment. The betrayal gnawed at me, Mom's icy justification, Ethan's smirk, Lila's giggle, Dad's cowardice, all of it a chorus of deceit. For 15 years, I'd been their lifeline, $2,000 a month for the mortgage, $600,000 total across a decade and a half of sacrifices. No more. I opened my banking app, the screen glowing in the dim light, and scrolled to the recurring payments. $1,500 for the house, $500 for utilities, electricity, water, internet, the threads that kept their lives woven together. My finger hovered over the cancel button, a tremor of doubt flickering through me. What if they really needed it? What if this broke them? Then I remembered Ethan's words, "You don't need it, we do," and Lila's smug, "You're set for life." I saw Mom's cold eyes, Dad's averted gaze, and the truth hit. They didn't need me. They needed my money. I'd been their fool, not their family. I tapped cancel, the screen flashing, successfully terminated, and a weight lifted, sharp and sudden, like a chain snapping free. $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year, gone from their grasp, back in mine. I leaned back, sipping the wine, the bitterness on my tongue fading into something sweeter. Freedom. I thought that was it, that I'd drawn the line and walked away clean. I underestimated them. The retaliation, paint and poison. The first blow landed the next morning. My phone buzzed relentlessly, Mom's number, over and over, a barrage I ignored. By the fifth call, I silenced it, letting it hum impotently on the counter as I brewed coffee. I sat at my kitchen table, the Seattle skyline gray and brooding beyond the window, and checked my voicemails. Mom's voice crackled through, shrill and accusing. "Sophia, I can't believe you did this. Do you have any idea how much the house is struggling? Call me back, this isn't over." Then Dad, his tone softer but hollow. "Soph, your mother's upset. You need to reconsider. We're family." Lila's text came next, a venomous jab. "You're so selfish, Sophia, absolutely pathetic." Ethan's call followed. I answered, too furious to dodge. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked. "Taking back what's mine," I shot back. "This isn't about money," he sneered. "You're just a greedy leech pissed about the will." "No, Ethan," I said, my voice steel. "It's about respect, something I never got." He hung up, his parting shot a hissed. "Just wait." I blocked them all, Mom, Dad, Ethan, Lila, their names vanishing from my contacts like ghosts exorcised. Peace settled in, a fragile quiet I savored. But 3 weeks later, that peace shattered. I'd been at the office all day, my startup buzzing with a new project, when I pulled into my building's garage that Friday night. The elevator hummed up to the 5th floor, and as I stepped into the hall, I froze. My apartment door, sleek, black, unassuming, was a crime scene. Red paint dripped down its surface. The word traitor, scrawled in jagged, furious letters, the strokes so violent they'd scratch the wood beneath. My heart pounded, a mix of shock and rage boiling in my veins. I fumbled for my phone, opening the security app, every unit had a camera, and rewound the footage. There he was, Ethan, 32 years old but moving with the petulance of a child, a gray hoodie pulled low, a can of spray paint in his hand. The timestamp read 3:47 p.m. Daylight, bold, shameless. He shook the can, the hiss audible through the grainy audio, and sprayed, his movements jerky, deliberate, a grin splitting his face as the red streaked across my door. Lila stood behind him, her auburn hair unmistakable, filming it all on her phone, her laughter a high-pitched cackle cutting through the static. "Do it, Ethan," she urged, zooming in as he finished the R. They high-fived, oblivious to the camera, then sauntered off, leaving my home defaced, a scarlet wound in the quiet hall. The smear campaign, lies in the wind. The vandalism was just the opening salvo. By Monday, my phone lit up with messages from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years. Cousins, aunts, uncles, a chorus of judgment orchestrated from Portland. Aunt Susan, who I'd last seen at a funeral a decade ago. "Sophia, I'm so disappointed. Your parents sacrificed everything for you, and this is how you repay them?" Uncle Mark, a man I barely remembered. "Don't let money ruin your humanity, Soph. Families forever." Cousin Rachel, shrill and sanctimonious. "I can't believe you'd abandon your parents like this. They're about to lose the house. Don't you feel guilty?" Each text was a dagger, sharp with accusation, heavy with lies. I knew who was behind it. Mom, the puppet master, pulling strings to paint me as the villain. She'd spun a tale of woe. Poor, aging parents abandoned by their ungrateful daughter, left penniless because I'd cut them off. But it was a fabrication. I'd paid off that mortgage years ago, $192,000 over 8 years, every cent documented. They weren't losing the house, they were losing my handouts. $2,000 a month they'd grown addicted to, a drug I'd finally cut off. I laughed, a dry, bitter sound, reading their messages. They didn't know the truth because they didn't care to. They swallowed Mom's story whole, eager to judge from the sidelines. The digital assault, Lila's revenge. The worst came Wednesday. I was in a board meeting, pitching a new app feature to investors, when my COO slid her phone across the table, her face pale. "Sophia, you need to see this." I glanced down. Our company's X account at Nextech Labs had posted, "Sophia exploits her employees, overworked, underpaid, all for her greed." Another, "Nextech's success is built on lies. Don't trust her." My stomach dropped, the room spinning as murmurs rippled through the investors. Our stock ticker flashed on a screen, down 10% in minutes. Clients were DMing us, panicked. "Is this true?" "We're pulling our contract." I excused myself, hands shaking, and logged into the admin panel. The posts were live, time-stamped an hour ago, but I hadn't touched them. I called our IT lead, Mark. "Hack?" I asked, voice tight. "Checking now," he said, his keyboard clacking furiously. 10 minutes later, he called back. "Not a hack. Someone used your credentials. IP traces to Portland." Portland. Lila. She'd been at my apartment a year ago, borrowing my laptop for a quick post. She must have snagged my password then. I pictured her, giggling as she typed, her manicured fingers dancing over the keys, aiming to torch the company I'd built from scratch. This wasn't just petty, it was sabotage, a missile aimed at my livelihood, my pride, my everything. The counterattack, truth as a weapon. I didn't crumble. I struck back. First the vandalism. I saved the footage, Ethan's smug face, Lila's cackle, and called the police. An officer arrived within the hour, young but stern, his notepad open. "This your brother?" he asked, watching the video. "Not anymore," I said, my voice ice. "Press charges?" "Yes, vandalism, harassment, whatever sticks." He nodded, jotting it down. I demanded $75,000. Repairs, legal fees, emotional damages. Dad called the next day, pleading, "Soph, drop it. Ethan was upset." "Upset enough to deface my home?" I snapped. "Pay, or he's in cuffs." 3 days later, $75,000 hit my account. No note, just silence. Next, the smear campaign. I opened X, my fingers flying over the keys. For 15 years, I paid $600,000 a plus to my family, mortgage, bills, my siblings' failures. They cut me from the will, called me selfish when I stopped, and now lie, I've abandoned them. Truth, they're not broke, just entitled. I'm done. I attached proof, bank statements, emails, the mortgage payoff from 2018. It exploded. Thousands of retweets, comments flooding in. "You're a badass. They don't deserve you." The relatives went quiet, their accusations drowned by facts. Finally, Lila's attack. Mark traced her IP to a Portland cafe. She'd been sloppy, not even using a VPN. I sued for defamation, presenting login logs, IP evidence, and the financial hit. $200,000 in lost contracts. The judge ruled fast. $150,000 in damages payable by Lila. She called, sobbing, "Sophia, how could you? I have nothing." "You had my trust," I said, cold. "You burned it." Her payment came a week later, funneled from Mom and Dad's savings. Another blow they couldn't dodge. The fallout, a family unraveled. They kept coming. Ethan slashed my tires a month later, caught again on camera, fined $5,000. Mom tried a family meeting ambush, which I skipped. Her voicemail's a mix of guilt and fury. Lila posted a tearful Instagram rant. "My sister ruined me." But the comments turned against her. "You hacked her? Karma's a bitch." Each move they made, I countered. Lawsuits, evidence, silence when it suited me. They thought they'd break me, but they forged me instead. I stood in my apartment, the door repainted, the paint stench replaced by the crisp scent of victory. My company stabilized, stock rebounded, clients returned. The $230,000 from their payout sat in my account, not a trophy but a tool. Freedom to rebuild, to fight. They'd painted me a traitor, smeared me as heartless, attacked my life's work. But I didn't just survive, I won. This is destiny rewritten. They swung at me with paint, lies, and sabotage, but I swung back with truth and fire. This war isn't over, it's just begun. Keep watching, you'll see a phoenix rise. Revenge isn't just about settling scores, it's about rewriting the rules. I'm Sophia, and this is Destiny Rewritten. When my family turned on me, vandalizing my home, smearing my name, attacking my company, I didn't just fight back. I dismantled their lies piece by piece and turned their weapons into my victory. I exposed the truth on X, dragged them through the courts, and claimed what was mine. Not just money, but justice. Ethan paid $75,000 for his paint-soaked spite, Lila forked over $150,000 for her digital dagger, and I wrested $200,000 from the Cannon Beach cabin they thought they'd stolen. This wasn't petty vengeance, it was a reckoning. They thought they'd bury me, but I rose and they fell. Stay with me, this is where the tide turned and I took back my power. The public strike, truth unleashed. The war had escalated. Ethan's vandalism, the family's smear campaign, Lila's hack, and I was done playing defense. It was a Thursday night, the Seattle rain drumming a relentless rhythm against my window, mirroring the fury pulsing in my veins. I'd spent the day stabilizing my startup, reassuring clients shaken by Lila's ex-posts, watching our stock teeter on the edge of collapse. My apartment door, freshly repainted, stood as a silent testament to Ethan's spite, the red traitor now a ghost beneath layers of black. I poured a glass of wine, sat at my desk, and opened X. It was time to stop reacting and start striking. My fingers flew over the keys, each word a bullet. For 15 years, I paid $600,000 plus to my family. Mortgage, bills, my siblings' failures. They cut me from the will, called me selfish when I stopped, and now lie, I've abandoned them. They've vandalized my home, smeared my name, hacked my company. Truth, they're not broke, just entitled. I'm done being their bank. I attached evidence. Bank statements showing $192,000 in mortgage payments, emails begging for cash, the $50,000 cabin renovation receipt, screenshots of Lila's hack traced to Portland. I hit post, the tweet launching into the digital void at 9:47 p.m. Within minutes, it caught fire. Hundreds of retweets, then thousands, a blaze spreading across X. Comments flooded in. You're a warrior, Sophia. They don't deserve you. Expose them. Strangers shared their own tales. My sister took my inheritance too. I paid my parents' rent for years, got nothing, turning my story into a rallying cry. By morning, it had 50,000 retweets, 10,000 replies, a hashtag trending, #family betrayal. My phone buzzed with notifications, but I muted it, sipping my wine, watching the truth do what they couldn't, dismantle their facade. Mom called an hour later, 3 times, voicemail full of venom. Sophia, what the hell are you doing? You're ruining us. I deleted it, unblinking. They'd ruined themselves. I just turned on the light. The legal blow, Ethan's price. Ethan's vandalism was my first target. The security footage, his smug grin, the spray can, Lila's cackle, burned in my mind, a crime I wouldn't let slide. Friday morning, I marched to the Seattle PD precinct, the video on a USB drive, my jaw set. The officer, a wiry man named Torres, watched it in silence, his pen poised over his notepad. This your brother? He asked, glancing up. Not anymore, I said, my voice cold as steel. Vandalism, harassment, press whatever sticks. He nodded, his expression a mix of sympathy and professionalism. We'll need a statement. Damages? I'd already calculated $2,000 for the door, $5,000 for security upgrades, $68,000 for the sleepless nights, the violation, $75,000 total. File it, I said. He pays, or he's in cuffs. They hauled Ethan in that afternoon, caught at a Portland bar, still smug until the cuffs clicked. Dad called the next day, his voice a gravelly plea. Soph, sweetheart, drop this. He was upset, didn't mean it. Upset enough to deface my home? I shot back. What if I'd been inside? What if I had a kid, a pet, trapped by that paint fumes mess? He doesn't get a pass. Silence stretched then. What do you want? $75,000, I said, firm. Repairs, fees, damages. Pay, or he's prosecuted. He sighed, defeated. We'll figure it out. 3 days later, $75,000 landed in my account. No note, no apology, just a wire transfer from their joint savings. I stood at my window, the skyline aglow, and felt the first taste of victory. They weren't invincible. They could bleed. The defamation duel, Lila's downfall. Lila's hack was next, a dagger aimed at my startup Nextech Labs, the heart of my independence. Her ex-posts, Sophia exploits employees, Nextech's a lie, had cost us $200,000 in pulled contracts, a 10% stock dip, and a week of chaos. My IT lead, Mark, traced the IP to a Portland cafe, her digital footprint as careless as her spite. I hired a lawyer, Elena Vasquez, a shark in a pinstripe suit who'd handled tech defamation before. "We've got her," Elena said, reviewing the logs. "IP match, login times, intent to harm, slam dunk. We filed the suit Monday, Sophia Carter versus Lila Carter, defamation, $250,000 in damages." The courtroom was a battlefield, a sleek Seattle chamber with polished wood and fluorescent hum. Lila sat across from me, her auburn curls tamed into a bun, her eyes red-rimmed but defiant. Her lawyer, a nervous man in a cheap suit, argued. She was upset, venting, free speech. Elena dismantled it. Free speech doesn't cover lies that tank a company. Here's the IP, the logs, the financial loss, $200,000 in contracts, 10% stock drop, all from her actions. I took the stand, voice steady. She didn't just attack me, she attacked my team, my dream. I built Nextech from nothing, she tried to burn it down. Lila glared, whispering to her lawyer, but the judge's gavel silenced her. Ruling, $150,000 to me, payable within 30 days. She called that night, sobbing, "Sophia, how could you? I have nothing left." "You had my trust," I said, icy. "You chose this." The $150,000 came a week later, wired from Mom and Dad's account. Lila had no assets, no defense. Their savings took another hit, and I felt the ground shift. They weren't just losing money, they were losing control. The cabin coup, reclaiming what's mine. The Cannon Beach cabin was the final blow, a seaside gem I'd poured $50,000 into, believing Mom's promise. This is for all of us. They'd cut me out, but Ethan pushed further, listing it for sale at $400,000, claiming sole ownership. I found the listing online, a realtor's glossy photos of the cedar walls I'd refinished, the deck I'd rebuilt. Fury surged, but I stayed sharp. I dug through old emails. Mom's pleas. "Sophia, we need $50,000 to save the cabin." My replies, "Sending it now for the family." Receipts, bank transfers, proof of my stake. I lawyered up again, Elena grinning at the challenge. "They've got no leg to stand on," she said, filing an injunction to halt the sale and a claim for my share. The hearing was swift, a Portland courtroom thick with coastal damp. Ethan slouched in the defendant's chair, his arrogance fading as Elena presented. $50,000 from Sophia, 2016 to 2017 for renovations, emails, transfers, her labor. She owns half. His lawyer stammered, "It's their inheritance." "Not legally," the judge countered, ruling. Sale proceeds split 50-50. It sold for $400,000, $200,000 to me, wired the next week. Ethan's face, pale and pinched, was a victory sweeter than the cash. The escalation, a family's desperation. They didn't stop. Ethan slashed my tires a month later, caught on a new camera, fined $5,000, another dent in their dwindling funds. Mom staged a family meeting, texting, "Portland, 7 p.m., mandatory." I didn't go, her voicemail raged, "You're tearing us apart." Lila tried a tearful Instagram live. "My sister destroyed me." But the backlash hit her. "You hacked her? You deserve it." Each move was weaker, more frantic, a dying beast clawing at shadows. I countered with silence, evidence, and the law, turning their attacks into my armor. The triumph, a new dawn. 6 months later, I stood on my balcony, the Seattle skyline shimmering below, a glass of wine in hand. The $425,000, $75,000 from Ethan, $150,000 from Lila, $200,000 from the cabin sat in my account, not a prize but a foundation. Nextech rebounded, stock up 15%, new contracts signed. I'd fought a war and won, not just money but power, not just justice but peace. They'd painted me a traitor, hacked my life, tried to erase me. But I'd rewritten the script. My phone buzzed. Mom, unblocked for this moment. "Sophia," she said, voice brittle, "you've gone too far." "No," I replied, calm. "You did. I just finished it." I hung up, the city lights a canvas of possibility. They'd forced accountability, paid in cash and consequence, and I'd emerged not broken, but whole. Scene fades. Sophia gazes at the horizon, the city alive below. Her voiceover swells, fierce and victorious. "This is destiny rewritten. They tried to crush me, but I turned their betrayal into my triumph. Ethan, Lila, my parents, they paid, not just with money, but with the truth they can't escape. This isn't the end, it's my beginning. Keep watching, you'll see what rises next." Betrayal by family isn't a rarity. It's a shadow that haunts more lives than we admit. I'm Sophia, and this is Destiny Rewritten. My story, $600,000 poured into a family that cut me out, felt like a solitary wound until I looked beyond my own scars. I met others, people like Maria and James, whose tales mirrored mine. Love exploited, trust shattered, legacies denied. Maria lost $80,000 to a brother who gambled it away. James paid his parents rent for years, only to be erased from their will. Their stories and others I've uncovered prove it. Family can betray you, but it doesn't have to break you. These aren't just examples. They're proof that from the ashes of deceit you can rise. Stay with me. This is where the echoes of pain become anthems of power. Maria's story, a brother's greed. I met Maria at a support group in Seattle, a quiet gathering of strangers bound by shared wounds. She was 42, a nurse with tired eyes and a soft smile that hid a decade of hurt. Over coffee, she told me her story, her voice low but steady, each word a stone laid bare. She'd grown up in Tacoma, the eldest of three, always the responsible one, working double shifts, saving every penny while her brother Carlos chased quick thrills. He was charming, she said, stirring her latte, the kind of guy who could talk you into anything. I wanted to believe in him. It started small, $500 here, $1,000 there, loans for emergencies that never got repaid. By her 30s, Carlos's gambling had spiraled. Casinos, poker nights, online slots, a vortex that sucked him dry and turned his charm into desperation. He'd show up at my apartment, Maria recalled, tears in his eyes, promising it was the last time. Sis, I'm in deep, $5,000 just this once. I couldn't say no. Over 8 years, those last times added up. $80,000 total, wired from her savings, her retirement fund, her dreams of a house. She kept a ledger once, she said, but stopped when the numbers made her sick. $10,000 in 2015, $15,000 in 2017, $20,000 in 2019, each sum a lifeline he'd promised to repay. Then came the jackpot. In 2021, Carlos hit big, $150,000 on a slot machine, a windfall he bragged about on social media, posing with a new car, a Rolex, a grin that cut Maria deeper than any loss. She waited for the call, the text, the check, something to acknowledge the $80,000 she'd bled for him. Nothing came. I called him, she said, her voice tightening, asked if he'd pay me back now that he could. He laughed and said, "You didn't have to give it to me, Maria. That was your choice." Her choice. The words echoed mine, Lila's, "No one forced you, Sophia." A cruel refrain of entitlement. Maria confronted him at his apartment, a sleek condo he'd bought with his winnings. I stood in his living room, she told me, surrounded by stuff my money could have built, and asked why. He shrugged, said he deserved it, that I was fine without it. Fine, because she'd worked herself raw, because she'd survived his theft. She walked away that day, blocking his number, cutting the cord. I cried for weeks, she admitted, but then I stopped. I started a blog, Surviving Family Debt, sharing my story, helping others. I've got readers now, people who say I gave them courage. That's worth more than $80,000. Her eyes met mine, a spark of defiance in them. He thought he'd won, she said, but I did. I'm free. I nodded, seeing my own reflection. Ethan's smirk, Lila's giggle, the family who'd taken and discarded. Maria's $80,000 was gone, but she'd reclaimed her voice, her power. Betrayal hadn't buried her. It had birthed her anew. James's story, a legacy. Denied James came next, a chef I met at a pop-up food event in Capitol Hill, his hands deftly plating a dish as he shared his tale over the clatter of pans. He was 38, wiry and weathered, his laugh warm but edged with something bitter. "Family's supposed to be your rock," he said, flipping a sizzling steak, but mine was quicksand. Born in Olympia, James was the middle child, sandwiched between a sister who'd fled early and a brother who'd coasted. His parents, retirees on a fixed income, leaned on him when the recession hit in 2008. Rent overdue, utilities cut, their pride too brittle to ask anyone else. I was 23, just starting out, he explained, chopping herbs with precision. Line cook, $12 an hour, barely scraping by, but they called, "James, we're short $800 this month." I sent it. That $800 became a ritual. $1,000 the next month, $2,200 after that, a steady drain as he climbed the culinary ladder. Over 10 years, he paid their rent, $120,000 total, he estimated, though he'd stopped counting when it hurt too much. "I didn't mind," he said, his knife pausing. "They were my parents. I thought it meant something. In 2020, they rewrote their will. James had moved to Seattle by then, running a small bistro, his name buzzing in foodie circles. He'd paid their rent through the pandemic, $1,500 a month when his own business teetered, believing he was part of their legacy. A modest house, a few acres, memories he'd helped preserve. Then his sister called. They're leaving it all to Brian. Brian, the youngest, a drifter who'd never sent a dime, who'd crashed on their couch between failed gigs. James drove to Olympia, confronted them over coffee in their cramped kitchen. Mom looked me in the eye, he said, his voice dropping, and said, "You've got your restaurant, James. You're successful. Brian needs this." Dad just nodded. Successful, like me with my startup, a badge that justified exclusion. I'd paid $120,000, James told me, his hands clenching the counter. 10 years of rent, late nights, no vacations, I gave them that house. And they gave it to him. He asked why, begged for fairness. Mom said, "You're too proud, James, you don't need us." Too proud, because he'd built something, because he'd survived their demands. He walked out, the door slamming on a decade of loyalty. But James didn't break. I was furious, he admitted, plating the steak with a flourish. Wanted to sue, scream, burn it down. Instead, I cooked. He poured his rage into his bistro. New menu, longer hours, a loan he took to expand. It thrived, reviews soared, lines formed, a James Beard nod whispered. His parents? They're struggling now, he said, a wry smile tugging his lips. Brian sold the house, blew the cash. They call sometimes, hinting for help. I don't answer. He looked at me, eyes steady. I lost $120,000 and a family, but I gained me. That's enough. Beyond the two, a chorus of resilience. Maria and James weren't alone. I found others, threads in a tapestry of betrayal and rebirth. There was Priya, 35, a software engineer in Bellevue who'd lent her cousin $50,000 for a business that vanished, only to see him flaunt a Tesla on X while ghosting her. She sued, won $60,000, and now mentors women in tech, her voice a lifeline for others. He thought I'd stay quiet, she told me over Zoom, her dark eyes fierce. I didn't. I spoke. Then Aisha, 40, a single mom in Tacoma who'd given her sister $30,000 for childcare emergencies, only to learn it funded a luxury cruise. Aisha cut ties, started a side hustle, handmade jewelry, turning pain into profit. She sailed away, Aisha said, laughing softly. But I built a boat. And Daniel, 29, a barista in Portland who'd paid his dad's medical bills, $25,000 over 3 years, only to be left out of the will for a stepbrother who'd never visited. He moved out, opened a coffee cart, his grin defiant. I brew my own future now, he told me, steaming a latte. These stories wove into mine, $600,000 to my family, a will that erased me, a war I fought and won. Maria's $80,000, James's $120,000, Priya's $50,000, Aisha's $30,000, Daniel's $25,000. Numbers that marked betrayal but didn't define it. We'd all been exploited, discarded, deemed fine because we'd survived. Yet we rose. Blogs, bistros, lawsuits, crafts, carts. Proof that family betrayal isn't rare, but neither is triumph. Sophia's reflection, a mirror held up. Sitting in that coffee shop, Maria's latte cold, James's steak a memory, I saw myself in them. My family's excuse, "You don't need it, Soph," mirrored theirs. Maria's, "You chose it." James's, "You're successful." Ethan's paint, Lila's hack, Mom's lies, they'd tried to break me like Carlos's laugh, Brian's windfall, Priya's Tesla, Aisha's cruise, Daniel's stepbrother. But like Maria, I'd spoken, my ex-post a megaphone. Like James, I'd built Nextech my fortress. Like Priya, I'd fought, lawsuits my sword. Like Aisha and Daniel, I'd created, freedom my craft. I scribbled in my notebook, names and numbers, a litany of resilience. Maria, $80,000. Blog, James, $120,000. Bistro, Priya, $50,000. Mentor, Aisha, $30,000. Jewelry, Daniel, $25,000. Cart. Sophia, $600,000. Truth. We'd lost money, trust, family, but gained something greater, ourselves. The rain slowed outside, a soft patter now, and I felt it. A kinship with these strangers, a strength forged in shared fire. Betrayal wasn't our end, it was our beginning. This is destiny rewritten. Maria, James, Priya, Aisha, Daniel, they're not just stories, they're proof. Family can betray you, take everything, $80,000, $120,000, $600,000, but it can't take your fight. We fell, we rose, we won. What's your echo? Share it below. This isn't the end, it's the spark.